Hello gamers and welcome back. I'm Rob, of course, or Warshack if you want to call me by my in-game name, and we've been graced with the remaining mean streets of Gadgetzan cards. There's a ton of them, guys, so I'll try to, normally we go over like 10 to 20 and we talk about the card quite a bit, but there's a ton of cards that we need to cover, so I'll try to make this a little bit shorter than normal. As we haven't actually got to play with any of these cards yet. On top of that, we do have a release date now, December 1st. Frodan and a senior game designer were just streaming and talking about and playing with a lot of these new cards, and they said that December 1st, which is right at the beginning of the season, new set, going to be super exciting. For those of you who are unfamiliar with how we do our expansion review videos, we go class by class from common to legendary, and we do that for every class up into the neutrals, which we save for last, and it's the same thing, common to legendary, and we talk about the card a little bit and what we think about it. So without further ado, we're going to talk about the Huntard first, and the first card we get to talk about is the Alley Cat. It's a 1-drop, 1/1 beast, Battlecry, summon a 1/1 cat. So basically, this is a 1-drop, 2/2, very similar to what Druids have, and that's also a beast, and it's definitely played the... It's not, it makes me want to say the Starving Buzzard just because it's a buzzard-like card, but it's not a buzzard at all. I can't think of the name of it. Anyway, that's definitely played in Beast Druid, so I don't see why Alley Cat wouldn't be played in Beast Druid at all. Seems pretty good, and I'm sure the cat it brings out is also considered a beast. It's going wide, having a lot of beast energy. I really don't. It's decent and it's a common, so it's not that hard to get for those of you wanting to push Beast Hunter, which is something they've been trying to push for a very long time now. And as we know, Secret Hunter is by far the best deck at this moment. Maybe after this expansion, the Beast Hunter may show a thing. With cards like this, I can see Beast Hunter coming in action, you know what I'm saying? All right, so we got the 1-drop Smuggler's Crate. Give a random beast in your hand, 2/2. So I don't think the cat is like a copy of the previous cat. So like the Alley Cat, the card it brings out, it doesn't matter how much the Alley Cat gets buffed. The card it brings out is basically just a 1/1, right? Summon a 1/1 cat. Yeah, so that doesn't get buffed. So it's not like Doppelganger where it buffs all of them that come out based on what the original stats are. But this is basically, again, a 1-drop 2/2. Put this on a Savannah Highmane. It's an 8/7. That's crazy. That's a big old kitty. So I got some beast synergy there. Oh, a secret. A 2-drop secret. After your opponent plays a minion, give a random minion in your hand +2/+2. So this doesn't actually have to follow the beast synergy as it says a random minion in your hand, but you have to have a minion in your hand, and it's also when your opponent plays a minion. So very similar to the effect of Snipe. When your opponent plays a minion, instead of killing it, you get the buff. I'm not really sure how good this particular secret is. I mean, obviously hand buffing cards is a really big part of this expansion, but I don't know. I would think that the crate, the 1-drop give a creature +1/+1 was much better than a 2-drop give a random creature +2/+2 or +2/+2. Both of them are 2/2. My mistake. I said 1/1. But yeah, I don't think this is as good as the one we just went over, the Smuggler's Crate. This is just, well, this has to be a beast, right? So I don't know. There's a give or take, but I don't think the secret is that good. Heading on over to Mage, we got the Freezing Potion, the 0-drop freeze an enemy. So it's basically an Ice Lance, but if it's not frozen already, it doesn't do that +4 damage that Ice Lance does, and it costs 0. So in combination with Flame Waker and Coin and all that, it's just a cheap spell that stops your opponent from doing what they're doing, so you can get a huge board advantage or deal a lot of damage in one turn. Maybe it doesn't make Shatter so bad. It may be Freeze Mage, or not Freeze Mage, but a Freeze-esque tempo type mage deck may appear, because as we know, Freeze Mage doesn't need Freezing Potion. It does huge amounts of damage and basically stalls your opponent with Frost Nova and Blizzards, and there's no room for this card. But maybe a Freeze Mage is in our future. A tempo Freeze Mage, I should say, not really this normal Freeze Mage we're used to seeing. The Cryomancer, the 5-drop 5/5, so the stats are okay. Battlecry, gain 2/2 if an enemy is frozen. So again, kind of pushing that frozen mage type of deal where it's not just an OTK deck, it's more of a slow your opponent down, make what seems to be decent sized creature, a 5-drop 7/7, not as good as the 4-drop 7/7. So I guess they've learned their lesson from that one, right? I don't think this card is that good. I don't think there's just not enough good freeze mechanics yet. Like the freeze mechanic is good, but it's not worthy of playing the whole deck around just that to get a 5-drop 7/7, right? Like we can just if you want a cheap minion that has high stats, just play Shaman. I mean, this isn't enticing enough for me to go, yeah, Cryomancer, let's do it. Because honestly, you're spending a card to just freeze them and you're not killing it. So you're basically paying. No, it's just bad. Greater Arcane Missiles. This one is a dank one, guys. So we've got, this is freshly baked. This is a 7 mana Greater Arcane Missile. Shoot 3 missiles at random enemies. Deal 3 damage to each. So the first thing I thought about is spell power. How does this interact? Are you going to make 4 damage to each? Are you going to add an extra missile? Like, what are we doing here? So I'm assuming it's going to deal 4 damage to each, but the 3 missiles is going to be, it's just always going to be 3 missiles, but you're just going to increase the damage done by each missile. This card's really good. I think this is but it's the same slot as Firelands Portal, and Firelands Portal does 5 damage and summons a 5-drop, while this only does what, 9 damage. So you're sacrificing 4 damage for a 5-drop. I don't know. Maybe it's played in like, there'll be a deck where this is good, but I don't know what that deck is because I haven't built it yet. But this card, I think it on paper, this card's good, right? It's competing with the same slot as Flame Strike and Firelands Portal. So at the time at which the deck that this card's going to be good, it has to prove to be better or the equal as those 2 other cards in the slot. Moving on to Warrior, we've got the Public Defender, and he is a 2-drop 0/7 with Taunt, obviously pushing that sweet ass Bolster Warrior. So any card that synergizes well with Taunt, this guy is it's gonna go in the deck. So if Bolster Warrior is good, you'll see this card. If Bolster Warrior is bad, you won't see this card. Also in Wild, this card can come out of your Piloted Shredder. So just keep in mind, like I said, I mentioned this in my previous video when talking about cards that may not see a whole lot of play by themselves. You got to take a look at the mana cost of that card and then see other cards that have random abilities, if that's a card that could fit in, you know what I mean, to that random slot. So we took a look at it was like a 6-drop 1/1 or something. Like it was a 5-drop 1/1. It was a really bad statted high drop minion, and we take a look at that and we're like, oh wow, Firelands Portal, it gets slightly nerfed because that's a new card that can come out of it, making that card, you know, not as good as it was without that really bad high statted minion in there. So always keep in mind, even though the minion may not be played like as a card in your deck, other cards that you do play that could possibly summon that minion also are affected. Sleep with the Fishes, 2-drop, deal 3 damage to all damaged minions. So you'd use this in combination with Revenge, Ravaging Ghoul, I wouldn't say Taskmaster, but any sort of deal damage to the field, Wild Pyromancer, and then you'd explode it basically with this. Maybe a 1/of card, but it's all damaged minions, including your own. And they have to be damaged. And if you play like a Revenge or Ravaging Ghoul, you're damaging everything. So you're damaging your cards too. So as an epic, I don't know. It all depends what kind of warrior decks come out. This is obviously a control-based card to deal with little minions, because obviously 3 damage isn't doing anything to a card with like 8 HP. So I don't see it. I just think Revenge would be better, right? Because Revenge can be used at any point in time and has the possibility of doing 3 damage to everything, and it doesn't have the requirement to be damaged. And this is an epic, so I'm not feeling it. And the Warrior Legendary, the Grapple Hammer, the 2-drop 2/2 Battlecry, give all weapons in your hand in deck +1 attack. So Gorehowl gets an extra charge. Your War Axe turns into a 4/2. Obviously, it's gonna go good in a weapon-based warrior deck. That's just how it's gonna work. Is it gonna be found in every single warrior deck like Hellscream? Probably not. And also, right now, warriors are only playing like standard 2 weapons, max 3 or 4 weapons, right? Because you have Gorehowl. Well, first you play War Axe. That's found in every deck. So you got 2 weapons there, and then you got Gorehowl, or the other one, which is the I can't even think of it. It's the weapon that can attack a whole bunch of times. I haven't actually played with it a whole lot because I haven't played the Fatigue Warrior build, and I don't find it that great in Cthulhu Warrior. But maybe a Warrior deck springs up that this becomes good with, but unfortunately, I'm not feeling it. Like, Warriors get pretty strong legendaries. Like, we got Malkarok, we got we got Hellscream. Varian wasn't bad, but it wasn't good. It was found in play for a couple months. It was found, and the Dragon Tempo Warrior. I think just a Tempo Warrior, not the Dragon Tempo. So I think this is going to be one of the weaker sets that Warrior gets not so good legendary, unfortunately. Heading over to the road, we have the Rogue, we have the Shadow Rager, which is basically Blizzard's meme card. Every expansion, there's some form of Rager, whether it's Ice Rager, Magma Rager, Rager, Reversed Rager. So now we have the Shadow Rager, which is a Rogue-specific card, 3-drop, 5/1 with Stealth. You're playing... I don't know. It's basically the Ragers are just the memes. Maybe one deck, the Rager deck, will be the best deck ever. It's just filled with all them Ragers. Gadgetzan Ferryman, another questionable card, right? A lot of people have been bashing this card, but we'll kind of go over it and talk about situations which it's good and bad and what it relates to. So it's a 2-drop, 2/3 combo, so you can't even play it like a Brewmaster. Return a friendly minion to your hand. There's really no fucking reason why you wouldn't just play Youthful Brewmaster instead of this card, because it doesn't require the combo. It's a 3/2 instead of a 2/3, which is... I think a 2/3 is a little bit stronger, in my opinion, because you're able to kill, 2 1s instead of a 3/2 dying to a 2/1. But it having to be a combo makes it so it's very difficult to play. I don't know. It all depends on the deck you're playing. So I suppose if you're playing a bounce back Rogue deck and you really, really think that you can have the combo every time, you're going to want to play like Reno and then bounce it back. But I suppose, no, I don't know. I just think Youthful Brewmaster is better, right? It doesn't have the combo ability, and it basically does exactly the same thing. If this was combo, return an enemy minion to their hand, holy shit, this would literally be like the next bee's knees, right? This would be the ultimate fucking craziness, but no, they make it bad. The Buccaneer, the 6-drop 5/5 Battlecry. If your weapon has at least 3 attack, gain +4/+4. It's a Battlecry, which means even if your weapon becomes at 3 attack or more when this is out, it doesn't like actively get the buff and actively lose the buff. So obviously with Deadly Poison out, this becomes a 6-drop 9/9, which is basically, I want to say, the same thing as a 4-drop 7/7, because you're adding 2 mana and you're adding 2 stats to this. There's no requirement to the 4 mana 7/7, and there's a requirement to this guy. And they didn't release any Rogue great weapons, so I don't see where this guy fits in besides having to make sure you have Deadly Poison on turn 6 when you play this guy. I think it might be played in some like meme Rogue deck where they make like a big weapon, right? Like in Wild, this guy's not bad because there's oil. This could fit in Oil Rogue, right? You give it it's a 6-drop 9/9, you give it stealth and you win the next game. But in current standard mode, Rogue just doesn't have, like, Rogue doesn't even run Deadly Poison in standard right now, so I just don't see where this guy fits in. The Shadow Sensei, the 4-drop 4/4 Battlecry, give a stealth minion +2/+2. This definitely fits into with what the Rogue class is. I want to say what they've been pushing this expansion. They've been definitely pushing towards more stealth minions, as we see the 2-drop 1/1 with stealth. We see the 5-drop 5/5 with stealth, and if it kills a minion, get re-stealth. So there's a lot of stealth action going on, more so than what we've seen before. So them giving buffs to stealth creatures would be something that goes along with that current kind of deck type they're trying to push. So a decent card. If you're playing the stealth Rogue, I can see this definitely being in there. Maybe a 1 of, I wouldn't, 2 of them seems like a bit much, because even Houndmaster, right, give a beast +2/+2, and that would be, I think, more common than stealth, because once you attack with a stealth minion, you can't buff this. Oh, give a stealth, okay, never mind, I thought it said give stealth to a minion +2/+2. I was about to say, holy shit, that's fucking insane, but I read it right, then read it wrong, then read it right, so we right. Moving on to the Shaman. Let's go up here. By the way, guys, this is all clicking, bringing the cards up and whatnot, which took a fucking long time. So if the thing, just bear with me here. Just bear with me. the 7-drop 5/5 Battlecry, summon a Jade Golem, and then give it Taunt. So obviously in the Jade Golem Shaman deck, this will most likely see play. This is, they have one for Giroud, right? We went over that last time. It was a 6-drop 3/6, and that had Taunt, and it said just summon a Jade Golem. But this one, it's a 7-drop 5/5, so it costs one more. It itself doesn't have Taunt, but it gives your Jade Golem Taunt, which could be bigger than the 3/6 that the Giroud one was. So it's kind of just reversed. And I suppose by a turn 7, your Jade Golems, at least, you know, I want to say a 4/4 or bigger. So you're going to summon a 9/9 at least in stats for 7 mana. And it has Taunt. Well, half of it does. And I mean, if it's later in the game, your Jade Golem, we've seen, if you watch the stream at all, Jade Golem was just absolutely crazy. Like, Frodan played like 28 in stats on turn fucking 8 or 9. And it was just fucking face roll. It was just Jade Golem everywhere. So definitely gonna probably find this in a Jade Golem deck, whether it's a 1 of or a 2 of, I don't know. 7 mana is a hefty price to pay, and having this card in your hand sit there for a while is pretty bad. So good card, but whether we see 2 of them or 1 of them will be questionable. The next one's Jade Claws, 2-drop 2/2, so it's not as good as the 1-drop 9 damage Spirit Claws, but it's still pretty good. Battlecry, summon a Jade Golem, overload 1. So early game weapon, bringing out the Jade Golems, at least it costs 3 mana. I mean, even if Spirit Claws, you know, they made it overload 2 or overload 1, or they I don't fucking know. Have 2 attack plus 1 attack. Don't make it a 3/3. I don't know. But they definitely went in a better direction with Jade Claws. It's good, but it's not fucking bonkers like Spirit Claws is. Finders Keepers, the 1-drop, discover a card with overload, and then it's overload 1. So basically any shaman card that has overloads, where you're lightning storming, your totem goleming, your earth elementaling, all of the cards that it's basically the same thing as, I don't want to say, it's basically a Raven Idol for Druid, or for Shaman, I'm sorry. But the requirement is the card costs 2 mana instead of 1, but you're basically only paying 1 because it overload 1. And the card it gives you has overload, so it's decent. I don't really find a huge issue with it. It's not tragically bad, but it's not overwhelmingly powerful. The next card is the Lotus Illusionist, the 4-drop 3/5. After this minion attacks a hero, transform it into a random 6-cost minion. So transform, it's a shaman card. Evolve, transform shaman, got some stuff going on here. It's a 3/5 for 4, so you know the stats, it's 1 attack less than Chillwind Yeti, and a Chillwind Yeti is like basically the best base stats you can have for a 4 or for a 4 mana creature. So this card, in my opinion, is pretty good. Like if you make trades with, so theoretically, best case scenario, you play this card, it doesn't die, you can kill a minion, then you can attack face. You've killed a minion and you transformed it into a 6-drop, which makes it get basically 2 more mana for free, and you've healed it essentially. So I think it's pretty good. I think it's pretty good. Wide Eyes. All right, so there's a lot of conflict and badgering going on back and forth with this guy. So he's a 5-drop 5/5 taunt, death rattle, shuffle a Storm Guardian into your deck. I wish I had a picture of Storm Guardian. I probably could have found him, but I forgot to put him in here, honestly. I know what he is. He's a 5-drop 10/10 with taunt. So you're like, basically all people see is a 5/5 10/10 with taunt, but they don't realize that first this guy is just a 5/5. He's a 5-drop 5/5 with no ability besides taunt. So he's not great, but he's not terrible there. But the thing is, he has death rattle, which means this card can be countered. It can be dealt with prior to that 5-drop 10/10 coming out with taunt, because this guy can be polymorphed. You don't get the ability. You can be taken if you have Sylvanas. There's a lot of things that can happen before this guy dies. It makes it so your opponent doesn't get the 5-drop 10/10. On top of that, as we've seen with cards such as like Elise, when the cards get put back into your deck, or even Entomb might be a better example, when cards get put back into your deck, the likelihood of drawing them anytime soon is pretty low. So even though this card is, all right, so you have to play him, he has to live, then he has to die. Then that card gets put into your deck, then you have to draw it in time for you to actually play it and then get use out of it. It's It's good. Don't get me wrong. This card is very good in Reno Shaman or some form of Control Shaman. Very good. But it's not as broken as what some people are making it seem like. So I just wanted to kind of go over my first thoughts. Maybe it is the most broken card ever. But in my opinion, it's really good. It's Control Shaman. Let's push something more control. Don't get me wrong. It's good. But it's not absolutely fucking bonkers. It's not one drop, deal 9 damage. Moving on to Warlock. A lot of cool stuff coming up. The neutrals, though, there's one card in particular. I don't think we've hit it yet. That feels good, man. Feels good. 4-drop, blast crystal potion, destroy a minion, and one of your mana crystals. Definitely a card that Warlock has needed for a long time now. Single target, fairly cheap removal. Unfortunately, there is a drawback to it, though, right? You destroy a mana crystal, but we've seen this before in cards like Felguard, I believe it is. He's the 4-drop 3/5 with taunt, and he might be a 3-drop. I don't know. He's not played, and he destroys one of your mana crystals. So later in the game, this isn't an impact. You know, you're at 8-9 mana anyway. You destroy one, it's not that big of a deal unless you're playing like N'Zoth, and then that delays you a turn. So maybe it does have the slight drawback of that, but it's Siphon Soul 7 or 6 mana, guys. That's a lot of mana just to kill one creature. Granted, it does heal you for 3, but you look at things like Hex and Polymorph. 4 mana, transforms a minion, so they don't even get the death rattle or any ability, and it's gone. Boof. Hex, boof, gone. 3 mana, boof. I don't give a fuck what it is. Boof, gone. Turns into a little frog. So it's not broken like Hex, but it's good enough to beat out Siphon Soul. So cool stuff. The 4-drop 5/4, so the stats are good. Like, this is 4-drop minions having 5/4 in stats. Most of the time they turn out to be pretty good. Battlecry, give your demons +1/+1. When you play a demon deck, this card's going to be found into it. This is a almost guaranteed staple in any demon deck you're going to be playing. It's just one of those cards like Tomb Pillager, and that just fits right into the deck. Sorry guys, I'm going kind of quickly over these cards, but there's so many. They released so many at one time. I got literally annihilated with the amount of cards that they released. Unlicensed, oh fucking, I don't know, Apothecary. 3-drop 5/5, so the stats are good for its mana cost, but the problem is whenever you summon a minion, deal 5 damage to your hero. So why wouldn't you just play Pit Lord? Pit Lord does 5 damage to your hero, and it's not whenever you summon a minion. It costs 1 more mana, but it actually has 1 more health. And this doesn't even count as a demon, while Pit Lord counts as a demon. So I think this is just a bad card. It's good if you have a card that, you know, randomly summons a 3-drop, though. All of a sudden you get a, well, no, because it still has the same effect. Yeah, I think it's just a bad card. It's not even a demon. How the fuck is this not a demon? That looks like a demon. The Trafficker, the 6-drop 6/6. At the end of your turn, add a random demon to your hand. Will probably be a 1 of in most demon decks, and it allows you to basically generate demons you didn't currently have in your deck, which, you know, Draxus, Voidwalker, Voidcaller, the Infernals, Doom Guards. There's a ton of good demons. If you're playing Wild, Voidcaller, Lamau. I think Demon Warlock is gonna be fucking crazy in Wild with cards like Voidcaller and Mal'Ganis. That card's just so good. Voidcaller, Mal'Ganis, turn 5, GG. Because they just killed the Voidcaller on their turn 4, and you get a free Mal'Ganis, and then you have your turn 5 to do whatever you want. I don't even want to think about Demon Warlock in Wild right now. That's too much to handle. Cruel the Unshackled, the Warlock legendary of the set. He's a 9-drop 7/9, so he can be BGH'd. He has a ton of health, so he's really hard to deal with, and his attack can basically kill whatever he wants. Battlecry, if your deck has no duplicates, so very similar to the Reno type abilities which we've seen before that this expansion is pushing. Summon all demons from your hand. So with this, you don't get the battle cries from, though. I wish it said instead, well, it all depends, right? Because if you have Doomguard in your hand, this is better because Doomguard won't discard cards. But if you have cards, I'm thinking of a demon that has a battle cry that you'd want, like Draxus, right? Instead of summoning Draxus, all demons cost 0, so you could play Draxus for free. So it's basically a Deathwing, the one that the 10 mana 12/12 Death Rattle, summon all dragons from your hand, but instead it's a battle cry, so it happens right away. Very similar, in my opinion, to something like N'Zoth. You want your opponent to use their field clear. You drop this guy, summon what? 2-3 demons from your hand, pretty much probably high drop demons, hopefully, even if a low drop's in there, and he gets a lot of value out of them. So Good card. Heading on over to Giroud, the Dreamer, the 3-drop 3/3, so the stats really aren't there. I mean, 3-drop 3/3, they're not bad, but they're just not great. You're hoping for some form of ability or something to happen here. And it's a Battlecry. If a friendly minion has 5 or more attack, gain 2+2. So it's a 3-drop 5/5. But the thing is, you're not playing this on turn 3 because you already have to have a minion which has 5 or more. So the only situation in which this can actually trigger exactly on turn 3 is if you innervate something out early on and you play this basically on curve, or you play that no, even that's a 3-drop, you know, I think it's like transform, be a 2/5 or a 5/2. So this is a card that you're going to have to play past turn 3, and past turn 3 summoning a 3-drop 5/5 is good, but I don't know, it doesn't belong to any category. I think it's okay, but it's not great. I don't think I'd play it. I mean, who knows? Haven't played many of the cards yet, but off the bat does not look very enticing. Heading on over to the Priest, we've got the 5-drop 5/5 Battlecry, silence a minion. We've seen a lot of silence get removed. It's not a dragon. If it was a dragon too, that'd be pretty fucking crazy. So that's good. They decided not to face roll the dragons all over everybody. The silence is very powerful and the stats are there, so I can figure a 1-of, right? Or they could play this other card that's a neutral that also gets rid of silence from death rattles, which we haven't been over, which I think is really good. That's the card I was like wowsing about. But this is definitely basically the same thing. You're just silencing cards like Sylvanas, and just anything you really want to get rid of. And I wouldn't say get rid of, but stop from getting worse, right? A lot of death rattles make a lot of situations much worse. Greater Healing Potion, 4 mana, restore 12 health. That's a lot. This makes Healing Wave look like shit. Well, I mean, it doesn't make it look bad, but it just makes it look more consistent, right? Because Healing Wave is 3 mana with the potential to be 14, but you could just pay 1 more mana and just guarantee yourself 12. I like it. Oh, if you have Soul Priest out, holy shit. Deal 12 damage to something for 4 mana. This card's fucking crazy. This is OTK potential status because you play Embrace the... Alright, you play Thars and you Embrace the Shadows and you can play 2 of these. That's 24 damage burst. That's not even including other shit. Oh my god, this card is so good. This card, oh my god, OTK Priest. Oh my god. Imagine Velen. Oh. This would cost 3, Velen costs 6, Embrace the Shadows costs 1. Oh my god, this card is so good. I'm feeling it, Mr. Krabs. I am feeling it. Alright, heading on over to the neutrals. We've got the Solicitite? I don't know. I'll just call her Gadgetzan. And the 2-drop 2/2 to Battlecry, restore 2 health. So it's basically just a cheaper version of Earthen Ring Farseer, which is a 3-drop 3/3 Battlecry, restore 3 HP. That card's good. I don't see why not this card. I don't see why this card wouldn't be good. Street Trickster, the 3-drop 0/7 spell damage +1. Well, currently the 2-drop 2/2 spell power +1 is being played a lot, but clap 3 mana for essentially no attack, but 2 more in stats, or 3 more in stats, could be something. So I'm not gonna put this guy out of the books yet, but there's cards similar to him that are good, so I'm sure he'll maybe find a spot, but doesn't really strike me as broken. 4 mana, 5/4 pirate, give your weapon +1 attack. Good pirate card. It's a neutral, fits into any kind of thing. Obviously it's going to be a weapon type base, or a weapon based deck, so either a rogue or a warrior. So those are the only 2 that really strike me as very pirate based and have weapons that it works with. That's basically it. The 4-drop 5/4, you can't go wrong with those stats. It's a good card. It'll be found in any sort of pirate deck, whether it's warrior or rogue. 5 drop 4/6 Battlecry enemy minions lose stealth. So there's definitely, they've introduced, or let's say released a card that allows you to kind of get around if like a very strong stealthy rogue deck comes along. But unfortunately a card like this targets only one particular deck, which means that deck has to be dominant enough to play this particular card, and he already costs 5 mana and to reveal stealth minions, which means even if you play him on 5 or 6, you're actually not, unless you currently have minions on a board that can attack the minions that are already set by your opponent, revealing them from stealth doesn't actually kill them. So you have to, it's a very certain situations this guy will be good, but I don't think he's that great. I'd rather play, like, if you're trying to counter rogue that hard, just play 2 flares, and then on top of that, you get rid of any sort of secret deck you're playing against. It only costs 2 mana, and it allows you to draw a card. So if you're trying to target any sort of secret and or stealth, you can do 2 in 1 shot with a card like Flare. It only costs 2 mana, and it draws you a card, like I said. 5 mana 2/6 whenever you cast a spell +2 attack. Wow. Wow. Hello, Rogue. So, oh my god. This in Rogue is going to be crazy. So they play cards like the Questing Adventurer because they can play a large amount of cards in one turn. Most of those cards are cheap spells. So necessarily, like, if they play a creature, it'll get +1/+1, but this has 6, but Questing Adventurer only costs 3. This costs 2 more, but it gets +2 attack. I think this might replace the Questing Adventure in the Rogue deck, but that's, yeah, I think it will. This is fucking crazy. That's crazy. I'm not even gonna look at that. I'm gonna get fucking OTK'd by this card, and I'm gonna get mad, but we're just moving along. 6 drop 3/8 Ancient of Blossoms. This is gonna go right into Taunt Warrior, 100%. Like, this is a 6 drop 3 attack with 8 HP. You give this guy +2/+2, and he turns into a 5/10 for 6 mana. Sound familiar? Ancient of War. Played in Giroud most of the time. Costs 7 mana. This guy costs 6. So he's not absolutely broken, but it's, I would compare him, I would put him in the same kind of category as Ancient of War. Maybe not as good, but still good. 1 drop, Small Time Buccaneer, has +2 attack while you have a weapon equipped. Pirate, 1 drop, turns into a 3/2. Wow, this kind of looks like, what was his name? Cogmaster, right? Cogmaster was +2 attack when you had a mech on the field, and this is +2 attack while you have a weapon equipped. Cogmaster was found in basically every mech mage deck on Earth, so this guy's gonna be found in every pirate deck found on Earth. So, good card. Good pirate synergy. Pirates are coming back with a vengeance, folks. They want their fucking booty. Weasel Tunneler, the 1 drop 1/1 Death Rattle. Summon this minion into your opponent's deck. So this is basically a N'Zoth Ruiner. I'm just kidding. It doesn't ruin N'Zoth, but it's all right. So I looked at this card and I was like, all right, what happens here? Like, why would you play this card? And there's 2 things. First, if your opponent keeps playing it a bunch of times because they're very silly, it would make their N'Zoth worse if they're just so happen to playing a control N'Zoth deck. But besides that, it makes their draws worse. And when do you want to make your opponent's draws bad? And that's when you're playing an aggressive type deck. So you would play this in aggressive type deck. It dies. It goes into your opponent's deck, and instead of maybe them drawing an AoE or a big taunt minion or just something that's going to help them in a certain situation, they draw this 1 drop 1/1. So maybe in an aggressive base deck, but I don't think it's even that good to play it for that specific reason. The 3 drop 1/1 whenever you summon a Battlecry minion while this is in your hand, gain +1/+1. This card, in my opinion, is trash. It's just one of those not so great card because there's already a card out that says get +1/+1 for every Battlecry you play, and it's already decently statted. This is horribly statted, has to be in your hand, so you can't even play it just as a card that's going to get buffed, and it's only +1/+1, so it basically has to sit in your hand for the time that you play at least 3 minions that have Battlecry to at least be a 3 drop 4/4. I don't see it. It's just too much of a waste sitting in your hand like that. This is the card that I was really excited for. The 6 drop 5/7 stats are really, really powerful. The 5 attack, 7 HP, takes out most minions, has a high HP. Battlecry, silence a minion with Death Rattle. So as this is very specific to Death Rattle, most people play a couple powerful Death Rattles in their deck. this being played, it's not like an early game minion, it's a later game minion, so it's statted well. So when you get rid of that death rattle, you're probably going to either be able to kill it, or you can play this guy by himself and he's still going to be able to make trades into other cards. So whether he's just a 1 of or a 2 of, I think this is a really, really good card. In my opinion, I think it's a good card. Very excited. And its picture is super cool, right? He's a guy juggling with knives and he's like, I'm a bandit. Sergeant Sally, the 3-drop 1/1 death rattle, deal damage to equal to your opponent. Deal damage equal to this minion's attack to all enemy minions. So like I said, they play Sally and this card has 5 attack. You've silenced it. And all of a sudden, this is back to a 1. Oh, I'm sorry. This is back to a 1/1 and it does nothing. And it's a 3-drop. So it's just, there's a lot of cards that the Defias can hit. That's good. But Sally, in an essence, is good at herself as well. Using her with cards like Power Overwhelming. We've seen that before in the stream. So for 4 mana, you can basically deal 5 damage to everything on your opponent's side of the field. Works well with hand buffing cards, right? She gets buffed. She turns in the 3/3. She's a 3-drop, 3/3, deal 3 damage to all your opponents and our opponent's creatures. It's not everything on the board, which is really, really powerful. But the only thing is she has to somehow get buffed. So you have to play her in a deck where there's quite a few buffs to make sure at least one of them hit her. So, good card. Good field clear. The Shark, the 4-drop, 5/4, again, powerful stats, and whenever this attacks, both players draw until they have 3 cards. So this is going to fit into an aggressive base deck, like Hunter or Paladin, where they can play a whole bunch of really small minions, and then from there, they play this guy, they attack, and whether they only have 1 to 2 cards in their hand, they're drawing 1 or 2, and most likely their opponent's not going to only have, less than 3 cards in their hand, so the effect will basically only trigger for yourself, hopefully. I don't think this would fit in well into Zoo because you already have the passive ability to draw cards. There's no need for this card. So it's going to be in decks where draw is really bad. And that's Hunter, for example. Hunter, Paladin. Well, Paladin doesn't have bad draw. They just, aggressive Paladins do. They depend on Divine Favor. So I guess maybe like Divine Favor costs 4, but this is a minion, right? And it can just continuously keep drawing you cards. So I don't know. Seems good. The 6-drop 4/5, this card. Taunt, Battlecry, draw cards until you draw one that isn't a dragon. So obviously this is going to be found in a dragon deck, minion heavy. So obviously you think Priest, you think Warrior. What's another good dragon deck? Maybe Druid, even though we've tested Dragon Druid and it's proven to be pretty fucking bad. Mage, maybe. But you have to draw, so... As we know, there's basically almost an equal amount of minions and spells in your deck. There's I wouldn't say exactly 15, but most of the time in standard decks, there's about the same. So you're going to draw, I think, 1 to 2 cards most of the time with this guy. So even if he's a 6-drop, 4/5, draw 1, then you'd be playing a 5-drop, 4/5, draw 1. And then he has Battlecry, which would basically be the same stats he has. So you have to draw 2 cards to make this guy worth it. So the first one would be a dragon, the first one would be a spell, is what you're hoping. And if with a stacked deck with most of the cards in the deck, with half, at least somewhere around half of them being dragons, I think it's a fair shot to say that this is a pretty good card to go into like any sort of dragon deck, but it's not a staple. And currently, Priest doesn't have a great draw mechanic, so I think this will be found more in Priest than it will be in Warrior, because Warriors do have a pretty good amount of cycle with shield blocks, slams, Alkalite of Pains, and things of that nature. So I think this is more of a Priest-based dragon card. But again, not necessarily a huge staple. The Mayor of Noggenfogger, the 9-drop 5/4 art. All targets are chosen randomly. I think this card is trash. The stats are bad. It doesn't necessarily do anything when it first comes out. It doesn't do anything at the end of the turn. It doesn't have a death rattle. But all targets are chosen randomly, which is, I'm assuming, if your opponent attacks, it's random. If they cast a spell, it's random. Like on the targeted stuff. If it's like Flame Strike, it doesn't matter. It's killing everything on your or dealing 4 damage to everything on your opponent's side of the field. But cards like Fireball, Attacking, Frostbolt, anything that normally targets anything with a certain amount of damage is going to be random. So that's what I get out of this guy's ability. And all right, guys, holy moly mackerel, that was a ton of cards. So hopefully I was able to cover them. I tried covering them to the best of my ability, but at the end there, I started running out of steam. This is a long video talking about cards, and I did my best. So if I missed anything or I left anything out, feel free to leave that in the comment section below. I definitely know I missed some stuff. I can't cover everything, as that would just take forever. And I also haven't played with these cards yet, so it's hard to say exactly what they're going, their strongest points are and their weakest points are and what decks they're going to fit in. But I think overall we hit the nail on the head for most of these guys, at least from first looking at them, or like a first look kind of reveal. So with that said, as always, I'll catch you guys in the next episode. I'm Warshack, of course, and happy whatever the hell day it is.